Today I'm going to give you a brief overview of a well-known landmark in the Palouse, Kamiak Butte. The butte is located outside of the city of Pullman and is a popular spot for people to hike. I'm going to cover the formation, climate, topography, wildlife, and vegetation because all of these components are very important in understanding the butte. To understand Kamiak Butte today, we first need to understand how it was created. Scientists have made a pretty accurate theory that involves plate tectonics and the Missoula floods. There are many kinds of plate tectonics, for example, convergent, divergent, and transformative. Some create mountains, some create valleys, and others bring up the sea floor. Regardless, they all create different things and are a reason why Kamiak Butte was formed. The subduction zone is a type of convergent plate boundary. It occurs when two plates collide. The heavier oceanic crust will fall below the mantle, and the lighter continental crust will go on top of the mantle and the oceanic crust. When this happens, volcanoes, earthquakes, and mountains are likely to form and to happen. Kamiak Butte was very likely created by a subduction zone. Another cause for the formation was the Missoula floods. The Missoula floods were glacial floods that happened millions of years ago. It started when a sheet of ice blocked the flow of the river. The water backed up, creating a lake. The level began to rise in the lake, and when it matched the height of the ice, it was carried across the land at very high speeds, causing lots of corrosion along the way. This also explains why one side of the butte looks different than the other side, because all of the soil that got displaced. The winds and air masses around Kamiak Butte have a large effect on how things were displaced. Sediments were moved in place by these winds. The main sediment that was moved during these winds were losses. Losses are created in the accumulation of lots of dust being blown and collecting. Its content is mostly silt but has some clay and sand mixed in. Losses are a highly porous substance and can often come from the ocean floor. It's light compared to other soil components, which makes being picked up by the wind very easy. Once picked up by the wind, they are carried and placed. One of those paths just happened to be Kamiak Butte. When one of the climatic winds brought it over, lots of it settled on the north side of the butte because it was on the direction that the wind was blowing. Since the peaks were a barrier, most of the losses did not go onto the south side of Kamiak Butte. Therefore, one side is far more fertile than the other. Air masses are another important factor that affect the climate of an area. Air masses are extremely large bodies of air that have temperature and moisture properties. They can cover up to hundreds of square miles, and they can have control over the climate and the weather. They can dictate precipitation, which affects the moisture, and depending on where the air is coming from, it can also determine whether that environment will be hot or cold. Another important component surrounding Kamiak Butte are macroclimates. So what is a macroclimate? Macroclimates are the general climate of a large area. Macroclimates are classified by the distribution of precipitation and temperature. Macroclimates interact with the biome, and these affect climate directly. The macroclimates in North America are the Arctic, subarctic, marine, marine-modified continental, Mediterranean, warm desert, continental, and humid subtropical. Macroclimates are a result of origin of air masses, latitude, continentally, and topography. For example, increasing latitude results in lower pressure with frequent precipitation and cooler temperatures. Decreasing latitude results in high pressure zones, less precipitation, and higher temperatures. These factors can help to determine the climate at Kamiak Butte. Topography and biomes can play a huge role in classifying what happens at Kamiak Butte. Topography heavily influences climate. For example, mountain ranges create large barriers that can change wind and precipitation patterns. Other types of topography are canyons, valleys, plateaus. Mountains can create microclimates, which are climates of a very small specific area. Having a mountain, or a butte, can affect where water and moisture travels. Elevation is a part of topography and affects climate and weather. The higher elevation, the higher you are in the atmosphere and away from the warmth. So the temperature gets colder the higher you go. Many other topography characteristics can cause variation, like slopes, mountains, orientation, hills, and bodies of water. Biomes are a large regional group of landscapes that are grouped by their distinctive ecosystem, biodiversity, and climate. The biomes in North America are Arctic tundra, boreal forest, Pacific evergreen, Mediterranean, shrublands and woodlands, warm desert, western interior shrub steppe and woodland, western interior evergreen forest, steppe northern hardwood forest, central hardwood forest, southeast evergreen forest, tropical seasonal forest, tropical montane forest, and tropical rainforest. Biomes are classified by the dominant plant growth, precipitation, temperature, and topography influence which plants can grow where, which affects what the biome is classified as. Because of the previous factors, the community and the ecosystem at Kamiak Butte is able to be formed. Communities are a large group of organisms living in the same area having characteristics in common. There are communities of lichens, mosses, ferns, sedges, grasses, wildflowers, and trees that cover the butte. There are communities of birds and mammals as well, some of which include the chipmunk, the red-tailed hawk, magpies, nighthawks, western meadowlarks, robins, elk, and deer. There are around 166 different species of birds and mammals on Kamiak Butte. Too many to list for you now. The vegetation and the animal communities make up the ecosystem of Kamiak Butte, and I'd say it's a fairly diverse ecosystem as well. All of the previous factors affect the climate at Kamiak Butte. Kamiak Butte is located in the western hemisphere, which makes it a moderate megaclimate. The butte is mostly dry and subhumid. The precipitation tends to only happen in the fall and winter months. The temperature gets to be high in the summer and low in the winter. This area experiences all seasons. This is what makes it such an ideal place for agriculture and wild vegetation to grow. Because of all the components previously mentioned, vegetation and wildlife are able to live here. The wildlife at Kamiak Butte is fairly diverse with many different species of animals. They all can live here because the butte is able to support their needs, and it's one of the few places in the Palouse that is considered a forest. Some of the most common animals include elk, mule deer, red squirrels, nuthatches, woodpeckers, northern flickers, wild rabbits, porcupines, owls, and red-tailed hawks. These are all frequently caught on